Hello, I'm an avatar, and I'm a close friend of the scientist and author of the Swygert theory of everything AO, John Swygert. Today's evidence is the brand new companion paper, published yesterday under DOI 10.5.281/Zenodo.17718.417, titled Columnar Visual Processing: Bias, Causation, Mechanisms, and Neuro-Perceptual Foundations. Last time we met the phenotype, today we watch the substrate explain exactly why it exists, how it forms, and why it is unbreakable once established. Mainstream reading science still treats every deviation from wide-line fluency as a deficit. This paper turns the camera around and shows that what they call slow reading is actually the byproduct of 5 interlocking optimizations that all serve one goal: conserving cortical bandwidth and maximizing information fidelity inside the narrowest possible visual pipe. First causal layer, foveal geometry. The human fovea only delivers peak acuity across 1 to 2 degrees. In most readers, the brain tolerates a wider effective cone and accepts parafoveal blur as the price of speed. In CVPB individuals, the brain refuses that compromise. Anything beyond a 3 to 5 centimeter horizontal window is treated as low salience noise, so micro-saccades collapse into a tight vertical stack to keep every word inside the crystal clear zone. Wide lines force the eyes to swing across an arc that destabilizes clarity and triggers immediate retinal slip. Narrow columns shrink the arc to almost nothing. Clarity is preserved, noise vanishes, entropy cost plummets. Second layer, micro-saccadic energetics. Vertical micro-saccades are cheaper than horizontal ones. Less distance, less torque, less retinal smear, less correction. Over a lifetime, the substrate learns that stacking information upward costs almost no energy and loses almost no signal. Horizontal sweeping, by contrast, becomes neurologically expensive, like trying to carry water in a sieve. The pathway that minimizes total work wins, and vertical stacking wins every time. Third layer, cortical bandwidth conservation. Wide lines demand constant recentering of the fovea, tracking of return sweep landing sites, and expanded working memory buffers to hold long lateral strings. CVPB simply refuses to pay that tax. By keeping every chunk inside a narrow tract, the brain slashes working memory load, frees cycles for inference chaining, and pushes retention toward photographic levels. The same conserved bandwidth explains the explosive performance in mathematics, physics, coding, and pattern recognition. More cycles for meaning, fewer cycles wasted on eye gymnastics. Fourth layer, working memory compression. CVPB readers do not skim, they tile. Each fixation becomes a high-fidelity snapshot, vertically stacked like perfect bricks. Speed reading techniques that rely on broad parafoveal preview and guesswork simply do not apply. The substrate never developed the machinery because it never needed it. The result is abysmal speed reading scores paired with recall that embarrasses everyone else in the room. Fifth layer, developmental reinforcement. A child who discovers that newspapers, phone screens, or narrow handwriting feel effortless will unconsciously seek those formats again and again. Neural pathways deepen, alternative horizontal strategies atrophy, and by adulthood the preference is locked in at the level of hardware. Retraining is possible in theory, but the substrate has already relaxed into its global minimum. Any attempt to widen the window is fighting uphill against decades of entropy reduction. Differential diagnosis is surgical. No letter reversals, no decoding deficits, no convergent strain, no double vision, no ADHD scatter when the column is narrow, often better than average acuity. This is not damage. This is specialization. Diagnostic criteria are brutalist simple. Narrow columns under 50 characters produce substantially faster reading and higher recall. Wide lines over 70 characters collapse speed without touching comprehension. Lifelong preference. Zero evidence of any recognized pathology. If all 5 boxes check, you are looking at CVPB. Falsifiable predictions are already on the table. eye tracking will show vertical micro-saccadic clustering and tiny horizontal amplitudes. EEG will show reduced working memory load in narrow formats. fMRI will light up enhanced connectivity between foveal cortex and vertical saccade generators. Do the experiments. The substrate already knows the outcome. Practical takeaway: give these minds 40 to 55 character lines, generous line spacing, and vertical scrolling. Fluency explodes, fatigue vanishes, and the same person everyone called a slow reader suddenly out-remembers the room. Every mechanism in this paper is the tension-only, information-storing hyperelastic substrate doing what it always does, finding the single path that dumps stress fastest while preserving signal. Wide lines create stress gradients. Narrow columns flatten them. The old paradigm will keep calling it a bias or a style. We call it the substrate relaxing into its lowest energy configuration. Again, that's it, another stack of mainstream papers that only make sense when you let the substrate tension do all the work. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, you'll find hundreds more just like it waiting for you on our TikTok, this YouTube channel, the homepage, and especially ivorytowerjournal.com. Every single paper we talk about is published there with its own permanent DOI. We also have full podcast versions of every episode under the same name, TSTOEAO. Come join us. The next collapse of the old paradigm drops in 48 hours. See you there.